there's just so much.
You're listening to a Mamamia podcast.
Australian women, welcome to your full body health check. This is Well. I'm Claire Murphy, your friendly neighbourhood journalist, essentially your nosiest neighbour.
And I'm Dr. Mariam, GP. And yes, sometimes I do become friends with my patients and then they are my patients no more.
Is that a thing?
It is a thing. I know. I really need to stop
making friends.
Stop. Everyone's just so nice.
I know, but like sometimes you need boundaries, friend.
Okay.
We have been having some very interesting, very tough conversations over the past few weeks, especially when we talked about weight and weight loss medications and our bodies in general over the last couple of weeks. But today, instead of introducing you to your entire body, because that would just take us forever, I've decided to introduce you to your very own humble fat cell. Now, fat cells get a bad rap. We're told not to be friends with them. We can call them by their fancy scientific name if you like, adipocytes?
Adipocytes.
Yeah. But fat is really essential because we need it to run our bodies. It is our body's energy storage unit. They also play a really vital role in our overall health when they're like doing their thing. They can actually protect women's health too, which is very important. So here's a few facts about fat cells. Women tend to store fat in hips, thighs and bums. That's pretty standard. But here's the interesting thing. It can differ depending on quite a few things, including your cultural background. So Asian women, for example, tend to store their fat more around their abdomen, which is why they can tend to be more prone to things like type 2 diabetes, even if their BMI is essentially a lot lower. It even differs across European ethnicity. So women from places like the former Yugoslavia or from Hungary and Finland, they have a higher percentage body fat than, say, compared to Swedish women. Aboriginal women have a really unique body shape. They tend to have longer, skinnier legs and shorter trunks, so they end up being more top-heavy. And in fact, Black women do differ from white women in muscle mass, in fat distribution, in bone density and bone mass as well, lots of differences. And there was a recent study, one of the largest of its kind actually, that found that people who are conceived in colder months, not when you're born, when you are conceived, you potentially have more active brown fat and better calorie burning abilities than your warmer month conceived friends.
That's so interesting.
The research is still happening, but the theory behind that is that it's changes in the sperm cells that are actually fertilizing the egg, because we know sperm cells are quite influenced by temperature. If you've been in a long-term relationship with a man, you've seen what happens when they get cold. So that may impact how brown fat cells are affected when those sperm cells are actually making babies. Women in general do have more fat cells than men. So on average, we're looking at around 6 to 11% more. And that is because of our good friend estrogen. And while it promotes storage to support our childbearing duties, obviously. And as we hit that perimenopause, menopause phase, that starts to shift. So our fat distribution is then more like a man's. We, instead of bum, hips and thighsing it, we deposit it more in our abdomen. This is really interesting. The number of fat cells you have in your body is set at puberty. So you never grow any more after puberty, but they can expand.
Yep.
So they can get to 10, 20 times their normal size. On average, a woman carries around 100,000 calories worth of energy in fat storage at any one time. That is enough to run 1,600 kilometres.
Wow.
In women, fat accumulates in places to help us too, to help cushion nerves and arteries, even our Mount of Venus, aka our pubic area, that has a protective layer of fat over it for added safety. So fat is essential for our survival. It assists us not in just energy storage, but hormone production, cell function, the absorption of fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K. But as we know, it can get away from us. And that is a struggle that us Aussies have been dealing with for quite some time now. There was a 2022 research study. The numbers showed that almost 2/3 of us are overweight, while 34% are overweight and 31.7% obese. Mariam, we talk about fat like it is the devil sometimes, but really it is essential for life and we should stop demonizing it and maybe start having a better relationship with it.
I think everything you said is amazing. I think it's important that we know that fat has so many benefits. Obviously, when we start to get in that overweight or obese categories, it can increase risks of conditions like cardiovascular disease and type 2 diabetes. But I think reframing conversations where we associate fat with being the devil and being negative is so important, and it's contributing to like the fat phobic society we live in. Reframing our thoughts, rethinking how we think about fat, thinking how it's important for our health, how it's important for our nutrition, as long as we're leading a healthy lifestyle and we're not steering towards being overweight or obese.
And can we stop using it as a slur,
Yeah.
please? Because being fat is not something to be ashamed of. If you are carrying more fat than somebody else, like, who cares? Like, just look after yourself and be healthy.
Yeah, that's right.
Stop telling people who are fat that they're less than or not human to be taken seriously.
That's right. We all come in different shapes and sizes, and I think it's really important how you pointed out all these different ethnicities have different fat distributions, and knowing and appreciating that we have beautiful bodies in all these shapes and sizes.
Absolutely. Next, we are going to answer the questions that you have been sending in about your weight loss injections and body longevity. Our experts actually really lined up to help us out with this. Remember, if you do have questions, you can send them through, and it doesn't matter what the topic is. The waiting room is always open. Find a link to that in our show notes.
The doctor will see you now, just through here to consult room 1.
Mariam, my friend, it is time for you to brush off your doctor dictionary. I presume you all have one, just a giant book that tells you all the things about all the body parts and what they do. It is time to answer some questions about our bodies. First up,
Let's do it.
if the BMI is bullshit, how do I know what a healthy weight range is for me?
Great question. BMI isn't total bullshit, but it's definitely flawed, especially when it's used in isolation to define health. As a GP, I kind of see it as a starting point, but it's not the whole story. It doesn't account for things like muscle mass, ethnicity, genetics, fat distribution, your age, your sex. It doesn't look at things like the whole picture, like your hormones or other underlying conditions. So someone with a very high BMI might actually be a healthy person, whereas someone with a normal BMI could be unhealthy.
We see that in professional athletes all the time, right? Especially those who are in sports where they do put on a lot of muscle mass. Yeah.
So what we're trying to figure out is what a healthy weight range looks like for you. And what we tend to focus on instead is where your body carries the fat. So especially if it's around the abdomen, that visceral fat, that's more linked to metabolic conditions like type 2 diabetes and heart disease. Things like waist circumference or waist to hip ratio, they're often more useful than BMI for assessing that metabolic risk as well. We should also be looking at things like, what is your energy like? What is your menstrual cycle like? What's your sleep like? What's your mental health like? Those things will give us a much fuller picture of how you are and how your body is functioning. And then we look at blood tests, things like your liver function, your cholesterol, your sugars, your thyroid function. And then there's your personal family history. We know that there's a strong genetic predisposition to conditions like obesity. So instead of aiming for a perfect number on a scale, we look at how your body is working and how you're feeling as well.
We caught up with endocrinologist Dr. Isabel Smith to ask some of your questions too, starting with this one. I am so overwhelmed by the amount of weight-related advice I see online, but when I try to look at it simply as in eat right, exercise more, I know that also isn't exactly right either. How do I know what to do?
Social media is a crazy world out there where if we followed all of the advice we read, there would be no foods would be allowed to eat. We would not be able to do any exercise because it would all be not the right type. We would have to follow ridiculous, rigid 5-hour routines that were required for wellness. It's crazy. I would say get the basic principles of health right. We know a Mediterranean diet over and over has been associated with lower rates of obesity, type 2 diabetes, heart disease. So lots of veggies, whole grains, lean proteins, healthy fats. Try and exercise most days. It doesn't need to be fancy. Moderate to vigorous physical activity a few times per week. Get enough sleep. Try not to drink too much alcohol. Have those basics down pat, and those other more specific nuanced things are really the cherry on top after getting the building blocks right.
I keep hearing that genetics plays a big part in being overweight. How do I work with that?
So we know from twin studies and adoption twin studies that genetics definitely does impact people's weight, and we think at least about 40% of weight is related to our genes. However, that is not everything. Our weight is not predetermined destiny. For people that do have a more genetic predisposition to weight gain, it is harder, but still those basic principles hold true, having a health focus. And there are medications that can help people with weight management as well. And people who are prone to obesity or carrying extra weight probably have alterations in some of those hormones to do with hunger, satisfaction, how we process foods, our gut microbiome. So again, the main principles are important, and then seeking extra help if someone's really struggling.
What kinds of health issues can I reverse if I lose weight?
The common ones would be the metabolic syndrome type 1. So early type 2 diabetes, we can improve blood pressure, improve high cholesterol, improve liver steatosis, improve arthritis. In saying that, not everyone will be able to completely reverse those conditions. Those conditions like weight are strongly genetic, but people can often still really improve those conditions significantly. So, those metabolic health ones, some people can reverse them. Some people might not be able to completely reverse them, but definitely still help them. Plus with the aid of, healthy lifestyle, exercise, nutrition, healthy diet, etc.
Finally, how do I talk to my doctor when I'm too scared to talk about my weight with anyone? It makes me feel really uncomfortable and judged.
The first thing I would say, 67% of people who currently live in Australia have overweight or have obesity. If 67% of Australians had, let's say, a type of cancer or a type of infection, we would not be blaming the individual or judging them for having that condition. We'd be going, what on earth is happening to let so many people develop this? If you are wanting to speak to your doctor and you're really nervous about it, I would signpost it from the start of the appointment and say, hi, I want to talk about my weight today, but I'm really anxious about it and I'm worried about being judged. Anyone with half a skerrick of empathy should then understand that sensitive language and communication will be really important for that consultation. There was a great study called the Action.io study that showed doctors often think patients don't want to talk about their weight, but patients often do want to talk about their weight, but they don't know how to bring it up. So bring it up like any other medical condition, but say that you're a bit nervous and have probably, most likely had some negative experiences in the past.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Another question for you, Mariam.
Mm-hmm.
If my doctor has prescribed me medical treatment to manage my weight, do I still need to follow a specific diet and exercise plan?
Definitely. So following a healthy and sustainable diet and exercise plan is very essential. We know that these medications help regulate your appetite, slow the gastric emptying, and improve your blood sugar control, which can make it easier to reduce your calorie intake and lose weight, but it's not a magic fix on its own. So for long-term success, it's really important to make sustainable changes in your lifestyle. So that's diet, exercise, working on muscle mass and movement. We know that you lose a lot of muscle with these medications, and we know muscle is important. So making sure that you're still doing those weight-bearing exercises as well. Nutrition as well, ensuring that, you're having really healthy meals, you're having your servings of veggies and fruit and protein, and that you're not just kind of continuing along with the same diet that you had previously, just at a reduced amount. And what happens when we stop, if you haven't done these lifestyle changes, we essentially see the weight comes back on. So if you've had these lifestyle changes implemented, you're more likely to keep that weight off, and you've implemented all these amazing changes as well, which are going to be greatly beneficial for you.
But sustainable is the word there.
Sustainable.
Because if you do make changes that are intense and are difficult to keep on long term, you won't.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
The whole idea, right? Okay, stick around because next we'll be asking more questions about weight, weight loss medication, and body longevity. All right, it's time for round 2. And just a reminder, this advice is general and every person's weight journey is personal and individual. So you should always consult with your own GP to get the medical advice that's right for you. So, Mariam, here's a question for you. Are there any side effects like withdrawal if I stop weight loss medication cold turkey?
Here's what can happen. Your return of appetite can come back. We know that the medications help suppress appetite and improve that fullness sensation that you get. So when you stop them, it's very common for that hunger noise to come back and return. Weight regain, unfortunately for some people, weight can come back, especially those who haven't implemented those lifestyle changes as well. Another thing is a good doctor will continually monitor you after you've been off these medications, especially if you've had previously elevated blood sugars and cholesterol, because we know with the weight regain that those blood sugar levels and cholesterol levels can slowly start to creep up. So we'll keep an eye on those as well. So while there's no classic cold turkey reaction, there can be effects, especially if the medication is stopped suddenly without a plan. So before stopping, it's always worth having a chat with your GP to explore why you're stopping. Are there side effects? Is it the cost? Are your goals met? And what supports are in place? Do you have a dietitian, an exercise plan, mental health support, for instance, and how we can taper if needed and keep tabs on your health holistically?
Beautiful. Now to Dr. Jessica McEwen, our bariatrician, for this next question from one of our listeners. Everyone says you put the weight back on when you stop using weight loss medication. So what can I do to try and stop that from happening?
The best thing you could do is focus on making lifestyle changes that you can maintain once you come off the medications. So picking whole foods, foods that you enjoy, making sure it works into your lifestyle, putting exercise in that you like doing. So there's no point going to the gym if you hate going to the gym. Find something that you like doing, swimming, Pilates, yoga, whatever it is, and build that into your routine. If you form those habits around that and you maintain those habits, and it takes about 12 months to reset a habit, you have much better chance of success.
So this question came in. I'm turning 40 this year. I just want to know if I'm missing anything. I eat pretty well. I'm mindful of macros. I exercise 4 to 5 times a week, cardio and weights. She asked, should I be sipping electrolytes during workouts? Should I be adding yoga into the mix? And she signed it off. I love a plan. Don't we all?
Electrolytes, helpful if you're doing sessions that are quite long or you're sweating a fair bit, especially if you're working out in summer. But for shorter workouts, water is absolutely fine. Yoga or stretching, absolutely, not just for flexibility, but it's great for stress, sleep, and injury prevention. Even for 10 minutes a few times a week is great. What I really want to stress with this particular person, it's less about doing more and more about supporting what you're already doing so you can keep doing it well long term. You don't want to overdo it. So that's really important as well.
Dr. Sonia Davison from Gene House Women's Health is on the next few questions for us, starting with this one. How old should I be before I start getting bone density checks?
It's really tricky because the government only give a Medicare rebate for certain conditions such as celiac disease, premature menopause, etc. If you have the funds, you'll be about maybe $100 out of pocket, but any time from 40 to 60 would be a great time to measure bone density.
If I make one change in my diet to better my aging process, what should it be?
It's a really tricky one, but I think the research is saying plant-based diet. I'm not saying give up meat altogether, but have lean meats, etc. But having more vegetables, having leafy green vegetables is probably the healthiest thing to do.
Is there anything I can do to help my ovaries not deplete so much over time?
Stay healthy and well, try and avoid getting nasty illnesses, avoiding smoking, terrible environmental exposures, being too skinny. Again, it's about balance, and smoking would be the biggest one that I would say, please don't smoke.
What are the best exercises for older women needing to build muscle?
It's about weight-bearing exercise, resistance training, aerobic exercise, stomping, hopping, skipping, whatever you can do, Zumba, dancing, something that uses the skeleton in the way that we need to use it. But for older women, particularly focusing on weights and doing some resistance training, and again, looking at something like the Healthy Bones Australia website for its exercise guide.
What can I do to prevent me from falling when I'm older? How do you make sure your balance is good?
That's a really tricky one, especially when you've had inner ear or middle ear problems. And we do tend to fall as we get older. Dancing may help. Tai Chi may help. Being aware of your environment. Don't have, lots of fussy furniture and things on the ground that you may fall. So just looking at the safety of home. Don't multitask. Use the body. But I suggest Tai Chi, some gentle dancing, even some brisk walking, and just being very aware of your capacity.
Last one, Mariam. Are you ready? Stacey Sims recommends the coffee with protein powder first thing, which I love the idea of because I'm a cooked brekkie gal. I love that. This ain't happening with 3 small children if I want to work out before they wake up. My problem is I've never dipped my toe into protein powders at all. What do I need to know before I purchase ingredients, additives, etc.?
I hear her. Cooked brekkies and toddlers do not mix, especially if you're trying to squeeze in a workout before the chaos starts. Protein powders are a great option, especially if you pair it with coffee, but you want to mix it in slowly so it doesn't clump because you're putting it in a hot sauce. When choosing a protein powder, I always say you're looking for one with the least amount of ingredients. So if there's like a long list of unpronounceables, then kind of stay clear.
Okay.
You want to avoid added sugars and artificial flavors as well. You can add them in smoothies, which are great because you can get some. You get some dairy sauce as well. You get bananas. You get your fruit in as well. But if you want individual advice, I always refer patients to a dietitian. They're amazing. They're often underutilized, but they are just a wealth of information when it comes to supplements and protein powders.
I had no idea how important a dietitian was until I was referred to one. And like they sat me down and really like gave me ideas on how to better my diet without it looking like I was making dramatic changes.
Exactly.
They were like, just sub this in here, maybe try that in there. And then I was like, what do I do when I get a real massive sugar craving? And she was like, melt a little bit of chocolate over the top of some yogurt. And I was like, what? I can do that? And she's like, yes, you're getting calcium and it's good for your gut and like a little bit of sugar is fine.
And what they advise is not like outside your lifestyle. They will tell you these are little changes that can go a long way. And for many people, they do.
Yeah, it was amazing. Well, that's it.
Amazing.
I love reading through all of your questions. If you do send them on a DM, I might just message you back just quietly if you want to have a chat. We've learned a little bit more about our bodies and our health. Remember, you can send through as many questions as you like to via email, well@mamamia.com.au. If you want to be anonymous, that's what we've got the waiting room for. You'll find a link to that in our show notes. There's also an explainer there on how if you want to leave a voice note, if you want to hear yourself on Well. Thank you, Mariam. We'll be back for another consult in a few weeks' time, so make sure you get those questions rolling in. Maybe I'll have to slip a few of my own in here so I don't message you on a Saturday night. The next conversation we're having on Well is a topic that is very big because we're going to be talking about fertility, infertility. We're talking about pregnancy, about birth, like it's a lot.
It is a lot. This is something I'm so passionate about. My journey was very long and I have so much to say and I'm so excited that we're covering this.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of stories, sad ones, happy ones, all the in-between ones. So make sure you tune in when we come back to talk about all things Meccan babies. Don't forget to sign up to the Well newsletter too. Don't miss any of this info as we go along. All that stuff is in the show notes. Remember again, the advice that you've heard here today, it's general. It may not suit you 100%, so make sure you speak to your own GP or your own health specialist about these things. Get that info that is correct for you. Thanks, Mariam.
Bye-bye.
Well is produced by me, Claire Murphy, senior producer Sasha Tannock, with audio production by Scott Stronach and video production by Julian Rosario. Mamamia Studios are styled with furniture from Fenton & Fenton. Visit fentonandfenton.com.au.
Mamamia acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this podcast on, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures.
Hi, I'm obstetrician Dr. Patrick Maloney.
And I'm Bridget Maloney. We're the hosts of The Kick, the pregnancy podcast that breaks down everything you need to know about making and growing a tiny human.
We cover it all with expert information and evidence-based discussion based on our experience of running a women's clinic and being parents to 4 boys.
From morning sickness to birth plans, strange cravings to baby movements, listen to The Kick wherever you get your podcasts.